Universal Orlando, a world-famous resort which attracts millions of visitors from around the globe every year. And over its 35-year history, we have seen this resort change a whole lot. But there's even more to this resort than meets the eye. In this video, I'll be explaining the Universal Orlando Resort Iceberg. This iceberg was inspired by one I found online, but since I wanted to focus on the Universal Orlando Resort, not Universal as a whole, I made my own chart. If you're unfamiliar with an iceberg, the well-known stuff will be at the top, and as we progress, it will get more and more obscure. But you already know that, don't you? So without further ado, let's dive in. City Walk is Universal's entertainment district, featuring a variety of restaurants, shopping, and entertainment options. The first Universal City Walk opened in Universal Studios Hollywood in 1993, but it was separate to the park itself. Universal Orlando opened its own City Walk in 1999 as part of the expansion of the park into a resort, and it serves as a hub connecting Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure. Volcano Bay is a tropical-themed water park which opened in 2017. The park operates year-round, with the water being heated in the winter. The park's centerpiece is a 200-foot-tall volcano named Krakatoa. The park itself is split into 4 separate areas, each with their own attractions. The Wave Village, which is a relaxing area with wave pools, and a pair of body slides. The River Village, which is designed for families and younger visitors, and features a lazy river, a play area, and slides. The Rainforest Village, which contains 4 thrill slides. And finally, the Volcano, which is the base for 4 signature attractions, including the Krakatoa water coaster, and a plunge slide with a 70-degree drop called the Kokiri Body Plunge. Universal's Halloween Horror Nights is an annual Halloween event which takes place at Universal Studios theme parks worldwide. The event began as Universal Studios Fright Nights in 1991 as a 3-night event at Universal Studios Florida. The following year it was rebranded as Halloween Horror Nights, advertised as the 2nd annual event. Since then, it has evolved into a scare-a-thon event filled with themed haunted houses, scare zones, and shows that run over the course of select nights from late August, early September until late October, early November. The event was held at Universal Studios Florida from 1991 until 2001, and in 2002, Halloween Horror Nights moved to Islands of Adventure. In 2004, a dual park format was tested, where the event took place in both parks, before returning exclusively to Islands of Adventure in 2005. It then returned once again to Universal Studios Florida in 2006. The event has been held yearly with the exception of 2020, where it was cancelled due to the COVID-19 pandemic, making it the first year that Orlando's Halloween Horror Nights was not held since it began. The event later resumed for its 30th anniversary in 2021. The Universal Orlando Resort has a total of 11 on-site hotels, the first of which, the Portofino Bay Hotel, opened in 1999, with the newly opened Islands of Adventure and City Walk. In 2001, a Hard Rock Hotel opened on-site, and in 2002, the Los Royal Pacific Resort opened. 2014 saw the opening of Universal's Cabana Bay Beach Resort, which features retro 50s and 60s style theming. In 2016, the Los Sapphire Falls Resort opened. The Universal Aventura Hotel opened in 2018. And in 2019, the first of the Universal Endless Summer Resort hotels, the Surfside Inn & Suites opened, with the second hotel, the Dockside Inn & Suites, opening at the end of 2020. In 2025, 3 further hotels were opened at the resort: the Universal Stella Nova Resort, the Universal Terra Luna Resort, and the Universal Helios Grand Hotel, which features its own dedicated entrance into the Epic Universe Park. Since Universal Studios Florida opened in 1990, we have seen many attractions come and go. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, or we'll be here all day, but some notable attractions we have lost are Jaws, Back to the Future the Ride, Confrontation, and Twister Ride It Out. There are also many defunct attractions at Islands of Adventure, most notably Dueling Dragons or Dragon Challenge, and Poseidon's Fury. Islands of Adventure's centerpiece is the Pharaoh's Lighthouse, located in the Port of Entry area. Each night, this functioning lighthouse sends out a bright beam to lead visitors to and from the park's gates. The lighthouse is actually based upon the ancient lighthouse of Alexandria, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. As I previously mentioned, we have seen a lot of attractions come and go at Universal Studios Florida, but the only attraction that has been there since opening day and is still operating is E.T. Adventure. Fast and Furious Supercharged is a motion-based dark ride which was first opened in Universal Studios Hollywood in 2015 as part of the Studio Tour, and later a standalone ride with the same name opened in Universal Studios Florida in 2018. Although they had the same name, the attractions had many differences. Firstly, the Hollywood version was actually a part of the tram tour, and the vehicles in the Florida version are a party bus. While the Hollywood version received mixed reviews, the Florida version had largely negative reception, with many saying it was a very cheap copy of the original version, with a lack of 3D or any serious motion. Even the Universal Creative Senior Vice President stated that the approval of the Florida attraction was the biggest mistake of his career during an interview at the IAPA Expo in 2021. Rock the Universe is a Christian rock festival which takes place annually at Universal Studios Florida. The first Rock the Universe festival took place in 1998 and has taken place every year since, apart from in 2021 when it was cancelled. On Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket, guests can choose between 5 songs to listen to on the roller coaster. But if you don't like any of these song choices, you can actually hold down the coaster's logo for 10 seconds on the song selection screen. Then you can enter a 3-digit code to apply one of 60 alternate songs. One downside to this, however, is that on-ride videos cannot be purchased if you choose one of these songs, due to licensing restrictions. This refers to the storyline for The Revenge of the Mummy. During the queue line, TVs around the studio play a video explaining how the original Mummy film was made, and most importantly, how the film's fictional curse seemingly was proven to be real while filming, with various accidents and plagues striking the cast and crew. Brendan Fraser is skeptical though and refuses to wear the Magi symbol, that the crew and locals are convinced will protect them from the curse. Fraser steals the crew member Reggie's Magi necklace and demands a coffee, which craft services would not serve him before since he was not wearing the Magi symbol. Reggie injures himself in a freak accident later in the video, and is then seen being trapped inside a sarcophagus prop in the background near the end of the video. At the end of the ride, another video plays on the screen. Brendan Fraser, dressed as Rick O'Connell, appears and tells the riders,
"Hey, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed yourself. I would have enjoyed this interview a lot more if I had gotten my cup of coffee! Thank you."
This made for one of the most iconic and quotable lines in the resort. Pteranodon Flyers is a steel-suspended roller coaster located in the Jurassic Park area of Islands of Adventure. This roller coaster has a very strict height restriction, which only allows guests between the height of 91 to 142 centimeters or 36 to 56 inches to ride. This height restriction isn't a safety restriction, unlike most rides with a height restriction, but instead due to the ride's capacity. Each train can only carry 2 guests, and it is said that no more than 3 trains can be on the track at one time. Therefore, the restrictions are in place to avoid extremely long queue times, and so that it can be enjoyed by the intended audience, that being guests who are not yet tall enough for more thrilling rides. The Bubblaine Group are a performance art company which are known for their unique performances in which they incorporate music and art, and members of the group having their skin painted blue, hence the name. In 2007, the Bubblaine Group began a residency at the Universal Orlando Resort in a brand new theatre located in Soundstage 18. The venue had an audience capacity of 1,000, and the show lasted for approximately 1 hour and 45 minutes. On February 1st, 2021, it was announced that the Bubblaine Group would be ending their residency at the resort, following the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, which affected the show's operation. The Bubblaine Group announced in June 2024 that they would be returning to Orlando, starting a new residency at Icon Park. During the planning stages of Universal Studios Florida, it was determined that a real working studio was vital to attract guests to a movie-themed park. Universal approached Nickelodeon, who were already being approached by Disney for their own MGM studios. In order to persuade Nickelodeon away from Disney, Universal offered a custom-built studio at no expense, and rent-free production, and in exchange Nickelodeon would promote Universal Studios Florida on air 1,000 times per year, whilst also airing their TV commercials. In 1989, work began on the construction of two 16,500 square foot soundstages 18 and 19, and a 40,000 square foot video production facility, Building 17. The first Nickelodeon productions that were shot at Universal Studios were shot while the Nickelodeon studios were still under construction in Soundstage 21. Nickelodeon Studios was officially opened to the public on June 7, 1990, and the Nickelodeon Studios opening day celebration was broadcast live from the studios. The studio would host daily 45-minute tours, and guests would be able to witness shows being filmed. However, the contract stated that guests would be able to witness shows being filmed 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, during all hours of the tour's operation. And some shows were only shot during the weekend, with weekdays being used for rehearsals. As a solution, a mock game show called Game Lab was added to the audition room, and would take place at the end of every tour. In 1995, following a disappointing year in terms of attendance, Universal decided to invest $2 billion in the development of a new theme park. Meanwhile, Nickelodeon's animated shows, namely the Rugrats, began gaining success, causing Nickelodeon to heavily invest in animation, which was produced in Los Angeles. Gradually, production of shows began moving from Universal Studios Florida to Los Angeles. In March 2001, the studio began laying off employees, as they had recently opened up a new studio in California, and game shows were no longer being produced there. The studio closed permanently on April 30th, 2005, and part of the studio, Soundstage 18, would later be occupied by the Bubblaine Group. Wet n Wild Orlando was a water park located on International Drive and was originally founded by SeaWorld creator George Millay in 1977. In 1998, the Universal Studios Recreation Group purchased the park, and over the following years invested in expanding it, adding new attractions. It was the most attended water park in the United States, until the Disney water parks Blizzard Beach and Typhoon Lagoon overtook it. In 2015, Universal confirmed that the Wet n Wild water park would be closed and replaced by a new water park, which would be Volcano Bay. The new water park was built across the site from the water park, and the site of the former Wet n Wild water park is now occupied by the Universal Endless Summer Resort. Universal's water park, Volcano Bay, has an extensive backstory about its formation. The god Krakatoa dominated the land. However, he could not contain the adventurous spirit of his daughter, Tainui. She fell in love with a native youth named Kala, and when her fiercely protective father learned of the romance, he flew into a rage. He banished Kala forever to the sky, where he became the moon. Overcome with grief, Tainui's tears became the sea. Krakatoa then realized he had only succeeded in destroying what mattered most to him, his daughter's happiness. Determined to reunite the young lovers, he reached into the earth and pulled it to the sky, creating the volcano. Krakatoa trapped the remains of his anger and jealousy in the form of the fire spirit, Vol, who he imprisoned deep within the volcano. The sky, sea, and the earth all came together to form Volcano Bay. There is also the story of the Waturi, who traversed the ocean in canoes in search of a new home. According to the legend, a mystical fish named Kanuku was destined to guide them. Their voyages took them to the far corners of the South Pacific, and wherever they went, the Waturi embraced the customs, music, and art of the many people they encountered. But alas, nowhere did they find Kanuku. They searched on until they came to the very edge of the world. And it was there that they found Kanuku playing in the waves. Within a day, Kanuku and the Winds of Fortune led the travellers to the shores of Volcano Bay. The Waturi knew that, at long last, they had found home. Universal began to conceptualize their Florida theme park in 1982, with the idea to build a studio tram tour attraction like in Universal Studios Hollywood, in order to set it apart from Disney. The tour, of course, would require the partnership with a production company to assist with the production costs, and had approached Paramount Pictures with the proposal. Paramount, however, were skeptical, concerned that the studio tour would not be able to compete with Disney. Coincidentally, the CEO of Paramount at the time was none other than Michael Eisner, who would later become the CEO of the Walt Disney Company. In 1987, Michael Eisner revealed plans of his own to open a movie-based theme park as the newest gated theme park in the Walt Disney World complex, which just happened to bear a strong resemblance to the Universal Florida project design plan. The area was to be known as Disney's MGM Studios. Universal claimed that Eisner took advantage of having prior access to the plans, essentially ripping off their plans. But Disney claimed that Eisner had never seen them, claiming that the planning stages of Disney's MGM Studios began in 1981, 1 year prior to Universal's plans. Still, it's a big coincidence that both Disney and Universal came up with the idea around the same time. Ultimately, the announcement by Disney, along with Disney's position allowing them to build the park more quickly, made Universal rethink their plans and focus on standalone attractions rather than a studio backlot theme. Merlinwood was a medieval-themed section of the Lost Continent island located in Islands of Adventure. What made the Lost Continent area unique was that it was not based upon an intellectual property, like the majority of the other areas were, but it was the one original land based upon the legend of King Arthur, with elements of European fantasy. The main attraction of the area was Dueling Dragons, a pair of B&M inverted coasters, which featured 3 near misses. The 2 elemental dragons were Pyrock, representing fire, and Blizzrock, representing ice. The 2 dragons wreaked havoc on the kingdom and fought over the possession of it, turning the inhabitants into ash. After the king's army was defeated, he called upon Merlin, a wizard, to help him win against the dragons. However, Merlin was too old to be of any help, but nevertheless, he remained in the castle and went to extreme lengths to warn those who dared to enter the ruins of the castle and ride the dragons. The queue line for the coaster was extremely immersive and featured extensive theming telling the story of the dragons and showing the remains of the fallen knights. The other roller coaster in Merlinwood was the Flying Unicorn, which opened in 2000. Ride cars were designed to look like mechanical unicorns, and its story told how a wizard, presumably Merlin, found a baby unicorn horn, and supposedly they only shed every 1,000 years. Due to the horn's magical properties, he used it to create the roller coaster so that guests could experience flying a unicorn. In 2010, both coasters reopened after being rethemed to match the theming of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, and hence much of the unique theming and stories were lost. On the Hogwarts Express, the windows feature screens which show the shadows of characters from the Harry Potter movies, with accompanying audio. Due to Emma Watson not reprising her role as Hermione for this attraction, a voice double was hired in her place. This voice double did not sound anything like her, and with Rupert Grint reprising his role as Ron for the attraction, it made it a lot more obvious that it wasn't her. As a result, in late 2023, Universal hired a new voice double that sounded more like her to dub over the original dialogue.
Ron, food is the first of the 5 principal exceptions to Gamp's law of elemental transfiguration.
Ron, food is the first of the 5 principal exceptions to Gamp's law of elemental transfiguration.
Following the huge investment of Universal in its new theme park, Islands of Adventure, the years that followed were very difficult for Universal. The park was still struggling to compete with the likes of Disney, and being in an area full of tourist destinations, it wasn't drawing in the crowds it had hoped for. The events of 9/11 made things worse, with people cancelling vacations which affected all the parks in the area and around the world. By the time that crowds started to rebound, the recession hit and reduced attendance once again. Of course, not just at Universal, but it was definitely bad timing to open a new theme park. In order to bounce back and increase attendance again, Universal decided to build the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, which did in fact increase attendance at Islands of Adventure by 36% on its opening year. In 2003, rumours began to circulate that Harry Potter would be coming to a Disney park. These rumours were actually sparked by a question and answer session with Universal Orlando president Bob Galt. When questioned about whether Universal have ever pursued Harry Potter, he replied, "Disney has Harry Potter wrapped up." While this wasn't true, this belief came from years prior, when Universal had pursued the rights to Harry Potter for a stunt show they were planning. When they presented the proposal to J.K. Rowling, she responded, "Thanks but no thanks. We've already awarded the theme park rights to someone else." And understandably, Universal executives assumed that someone else was Disney. But Warner Bros., who owned the rights to the Harry Potter franchise, denied these rumours. In 2005, both Universal and Disney entered negotiations for the theme park rights to the Harry Potter franchise. Disney's plans for a Harry Potter themed area were of a much smaller scale, with it being planned to be located in a corner of the Fantasyland area of the Magic Kingdom, with only 2 planned attractions, which would have been based entirely on the books rather than the film series. J.K. Rowling actually signed a letter of intent with Disney regarding the Harry Potter themed land. However, the studio and J.K. Rowling insisted on the right to approve much of the final product, and Disney decided not to bid. Robert Iger, the CEO of the Walt Disney Company, later commented that the Parks division didn't like the terms of the agreement, and in 2007, Universal announced that they had acquired the rights to use the Harry Potter franchise in their theme park. Triceratops Encounter was an attraction located in the Jurassic Park area, where guests would confront animatronic Triceratops and were allowed to pet them. The attraction included 3 buildings which housed 3 animatronic Triceratops, named Topper, Sarah, and Chris, and they were designed to be as realistic and engaging as possible, responding to the touch of visitors. In late 2001, due to the low popularity of the attraction and guest feedback, the decision was made to close the attraction until further notice, opening again in 2002 under a new name, Triceratops Discovery Trail. The attraction later faced many technical issues, with the animatronics frequently breaking down, and the Discovery Trail was closed for extended seasonal maintenance in 2003, reopening later that year until April 2004, when it was closed, with Universal explaining that the dinosaurs had grown up and were released. After over 5 years of being closed, with the park experiencing larger crowds due to the new Harry Potter land, the decision was made to reopen the attraction under seasonal operations on December 13, 2010, but it only operated for short bursts until January 1, 2012, when it was closed permanently. For years, the venue and the animatronics were left abandoned. That was until 2015, when a new attraction would be introduced, taking up a portion of the Discovery Trail, called Raptor Encounter. This was very similar to the former attraction, but with raptors rather than triceratops. In 2019, construction for a new attraction that would be Velocicoaster began on the site of the Discovery Trail, so the raptor encounter was relocated to nearby the Jurassic Park River Adventure. A nice detail in the Universal parks is the hidden references to former attractions throughout the parks. For example, in the queue line for the Simpsons ride, there are televisions which play clips from The Simpsons, which also includes an original scene featuring Doc Brown, voiced by Christopher Lloyd himself, revealing how the Institute of Future Technology became Krusty Land. In the former Amity area, there are several references to Jaws. Another tribute is a Dueling Dragons tribute in the queue line for Hagrid's, consisting of a distress painting of the Fire and Ice Dragons, accompanied by the words Dueling Club. And most recently, on the brand new roller coaster Stardust Racers, there is a flux capacitor on the back of the trains, which is a tribute to Back to the Future. This is a rumour that I couldn't find any official sources for. In some versions of the rumour, people say that Spielberg has threatened to remove all of his IPs from Universal parks if Universal decide to close the E.T. Adventure ride in Orlando. Another version of the rumour I've seen is that if Universal do decide to close the ride, they will have to award Spielberg a large sum of money. But yeah, if you have any other version of this rumour or any evidence of this rumour, I'd love to hear it. During the construction of Islands of Adventure, an attraction named the Preview Center was opened in Universal Studios Florida in the New York City area. The Preview Center was designed to give guests a sneak peek at the themes and attractions for Islands of Adventure. In the attraction, guests would walk through the various rooms themed to the various islands in the new park. The final room stated when the Islands of Adventure park would open, and showed guests Universal's future plans for the Universal Orlando Resort. The Preview Center was of course closed shortly after the opening of Islands of Adventure. The original concepts for what later became Islands of Adventure would have seen the park named Cartoon World, featuring various lands themed to different cartoons and characters. Universal approached Warner Bros. To partner with them in the project, since they owned the rights to many popular intellectual properties, which would help them in the competition between Universal and Disney, and would allow the park to appeal to a wider, family-based audience. The first concepts for the Cartoon World theme park saw a hub-and-spoke layout, with different lands based on a variety of properties, all branching from a central hub area. While Universal was trying to negotiate a deal with Warner Bros., they had already earned the rights to cartoon characters by Jay Ward, so began to design attractions based on these characters. The land would have been named the Northwest Mining Camp and was planned to feature a flume ride based on Dudley Do-Right and a river raft ride based on Popeye, which of course both made it into the final Toon Lagoon plans, but with some alterations. As part of the planned Warner Bros. Partnership, there were plans for a Looney Tunes themed land, which would have featured 2 roller coasters, one based on Coyote Canyon, and the other was an indoor coaster called Duck Dodgers Space Adventure, and would feature Daffy Duck and Marvin the Martian. There were also a variety of dark rides planned for the area, including a flying carpet ride using the E.T. Adventure ride system, based on the Alibaba Bunny short, as well as a boat ride based on various famous Looney Tunes bits. A lot of work was put into the concept designs of the area, with very detailed concept art and impressive plans. However, Universal was only prepared to offer a 6% royalty to Warner Bros., who initially asked for 10 and countered the offer of 6 with 8%, but Universal refused to even consider offering a 7% royalty to Warner Bros., and the deal officially died in 1993. In the aforementioned Cartoon World plans, there were also plans for a land based on DC Comics, known as DC Superhero Land. Superhero Land was designed to be split into 2 separate areas, one themed as Metropolis, featuring Superman-themed attractions, and the other as Gotham, with Batman-themed rides and shows. Metropolis would be a bright and positive location, while Gotham would be dark and dangerous. The Superman area would have been headlined by a motion simulator ride, following Superman through the Daily Planet newspaper office. I couldn't really find much about the Superman-themed attractions that were planned for the area, but it seems like they went all out with the Batman concepts. First of all, there was an interactive dog ride featuring Batmobile ride vehicles, which would have travelled through the Axis chemical plant from the 1989 Batman movie. One of the roller coaster concepts was named Batwing: Batman vs. the Penguin, based on the movie Batman Returns. It would have been a dueling coaster with one side themed to Batman and the other to the Penguin. It would have also been an indoor coaster featuring special effects and pyrotechnics. There was another roller coaster concept called Joker's Madhouse, which would have been a Wild Miles coaster with dark ride elements including funhouse mirrors and a fake-out ending. There were also two other roller coaster concepts which seemed to be different themes of the same coaster. Both would have been suspended roller coasters, one named Batjets and the other named Joker's Wild Ride. There was a Batman and Robin stunt spectacular, which would have been based in the lagoon in front of Gotham Island, and features the Joker, Commissioner Gordon, the Penguin, and Catwoman. Finally, there was a planned 4D cinema called Gotham Opera House, featuring Batman and Robin fighting the Joker, and a Batcave nightclub. Unfortunately, since DC and Universal were unable to agree on royalties, they instead later approached Marvel in the hopes to make use of the plans for the superhero land. There has been a long-standing rumour that a Pokemon land could be built at Universal Orlando. The first rumour began in 2018 when it was said that the Kid Zone area of Universal Studios would be transformed into a Pokepark. But instead, this area became DreamWorks Land. Then later, with the announcement of Universal Orlando's third theme park, Epic Universe, it was rumoured that Pokemon could be part of the Super Nintendo World area. Clearly, it was not part of the first phase of the park, but it's still rumoured that a Pokemon area could be a possible future expansion to the Super Nintendo World land. And finally, with the use of the Simpsons IP set to expire in 2028, it's speculated that the Springfield area could be rethemed to Pokemon. As part of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling insisted that they serve a variety of dishes related to the franchise, and in particular butterbeer, a popular beverage in the Harry Potter universe. The problem was that the books and movies didn't provide a recipe, just a very vague description that it tasted like less sickly butterscotch. So Universal had to come up with a recipe based upon this vague description, and they essentially invented butterbeer. When Universal Studios Florida opened in 1990, it had a production tour, similar to Universal Studios Hollywood's Studio Tour, albeit on a much smaller scale. This attraction was originally meant to be the centerpiece of the park. Guests would board a tram outside of Soundstage 19 and would be taken on a 15-minute tour around the park and the production studios. The downfall of this attraction was, of course, that Orlando wasn't Hollywood, and what few production companies were based there would eventually move back to Hollywood. With the lack of actual production going on, the attraction would essentially become a 15-minute tram tour of the park, which wasn't enough to sustain the interest of guests. The production tour was eventually closed in 1995. However, the Boneyard, which was part of the tour where various props from films were displayed, remained open until 2008. Street Busters was a seasonal street show based on the Ghostbusters franchise. The show featured the Ghostbusters attempting to catch their biggest foe, Beetlejuice. The show opened in 1991 and ran until 1993. In 2002, an updated version of the show called Extreme Ghostbusters: The Great Frightway was introduced. In 2005, Universal decided not to renew their contract with Ghostbusters, so the show was removed from the lineup. Pandemonium Cartoon Circus was a stage show that opened in the Toon Lagoon Amphitheatre at Islands of Adventure on its opening year in 1999. The show featured the characters of Toon Lagoon, including Popeye, Dudley Do-Right, and Betty Boop, performing circus acts and musical numbers. Pandemonium Cartoon Circus, like the majority of Toon Lagoon, was not ready in time for the park's soft opening in spring 1999, due to it being produced late into the planning stages of Islands of Adventure, and other attractions taking priority. It did, however, fill a gap in the market, with there being very few attractions suitable for all ages at Islands of Adventure. But despite this, attendance for the show was low, and after just 9 months, the circus closed on February 29, 2000. When Islands of Adventure opened in 1999, the Dr. Seuss-themed land, Seuss Landing, opened with 4 attractions. But there was another attraction that was built but didn't open, and that was Sylvester McMonkey McBean's Very Unusual Driving Machines. Wow, that's a mouthful. The attraction consisted of twin-tracked rails with individual cars, which featured user-controlled speeds. The reason that the ride didn't open with the rest of the park was that the design was plagued with safety issues. It was not equipped in the event of an emergency, and in the case of a breakdown, the cars would be stopped on the track. If they were unable to restart, guests would be stranded with no means of evacuating, since the track was very narrow, with no catwalks. In addition, there were concerns over the capacity of the ride, with the small size of the ride vehicles. With these issues, Universal pushed back the opening date to summer 2000, but no progress was made on the attraction. Then the ride's manufacturer, Seven Lamb, went bankrupt, and the opening date was pushed back indefinitely. Universal would eventually bring in Mack Rides to redevelop the ride, adding emergency platforms and stairs to certain points, to overcome the safety concerns, as well as modifying the track so it could hold larger ride vehicles and overcome the capacity issue. The ride eventually opened in 2006 as the High in the Sky Seuss Trolley Train Ride. It's a shame they didn't keep the original name though. That's one of the best ride names I've ever heard. On June 13th, 2008, guests in one vehicle of the Simpsons ride at Universal Studios Florida were sprayed with a non-toxic substance described as a derivative of vegetable oil. No injuries were reported, and the guests were given a change of clothes and allowed to shower at the property. The park identified the source of the oil, but were not able to determine the cause of the incident. This has to be one of the strangest incidents at Universal Park. And of course, it made headlines. Probably another of Sideshow Bob's pranks. In 1999, with the addition of Islands of Adventure and City Walk, and the transformation of Universal Studios Florida into a fully fledged resort, the resort was rebranded to Universal Studios Escape. However, this branding apparently caused some confusion, and after just 1 year, in July 2000, the name was changed once again to the Universal Orlando Resort. The Noisarium was one of the concepts for Seuss Landing which didn't make it into the final plans. The attraction would have been an interactive play area designed around sound, and would have acted as a post-show for the Cat in the Hat ride. Guests would be able to explore a series of mysterious rooms filled with wacky, larger-than-life instruments to play and interact with. The 2015 film Sharknado 3: Oh Hell No was filmed on location at Universal Studios Florida. Some famous scenes from the movie included a scene on Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket, where a shark causes the train to derail and sends Finn flying into the building which housed Twister Ride It Out. Another scene where Jerry Springer poses for a photo in front of the Bruce photo op, which actually turns out to be a real shark and devours him. And of course, the cast taking shelter inside the Universal Globe, which is then dislodged by the sharks, rolls through City Walk, and somehow eventually ends up on top of the Islands of Adventure lighthouse. In May 2013, as part of the marketing campaign for Transformers The Ride 3D, a giant silhouette of Megatron was attached to the Fairwinds Credit Union Tower in downtown Orlando. The artwork was made to appear as though Megatron had smashed through the building, and surrounding the building were crashed cars with car alarms blaring. On July 31, 2011, a tourist was injured when an unidentified object hit him in the eye while riding on Dragon Challenge. Prior to the incident, the guest only had one good eye. Therefore, the incident resulted in the guest completely losing his sight. Dragon Challenge remained shut for less than 24 hours after the incident, with Universal concluding that the ride was safe. Less than 2 weeks later, on August 10, 2011, a rider was struck by an object while riding the attraction, injuring his face and leg. As a result of this and the aforementioned incident, Universal officials announced that the two roller coasters would no longer operate simultaneously, pending an investigation into both incidents. In October 2011, officials suspended the dueling aspect of the ride permanently. Before it was settled on building the Jurassic Park boat ride at Islands of Adventure, Universal considered building a Jeep Safari ride inspired by the T-Rex paddock attack in the original Jurassic Park film. The idea was put to one side when they began to plan the boat ride, which used much of the ideas from this concept. When it was decided that Jurassic Park would get an entire land at Universal Orlando's new theme park in the late 1990s, they were looking for more attraction concepts to go along with the river adventure. They revisited the idea of building a Jeep ride which would have featured ride vehicles inspired by the Electric Explorer Tour vehicles in the film. The ride would travel through the iconic Jurassic Park gate before driving right below a large brachiosaur. A large dinosaur would block the path and force cars to turn around into what would be a raptor den. Raptors would climb onto the vehicles, and upon escaping the den, guests would come face to face with a T-Rex, who would step on the roof of the vehicle, like in the movie. It is said that this concept was scrapped because it was just too similar to the river adventure ride. Another concept for the Jurassic Park area was an attraction called Helicopters, which would have been a simulator ride featuring a suspended theatre ride system, taking guests on a flight over Jurassic Park. Both the Jeep Safari and the Helicopters attractions can be seen on the Jurassic Park model in the queue line for the river adventure. These weren't the only ideas for the area though, since in 2001 Universal began looking to install a roller coaster in the Jurassic Park area. One roller coaster concept for the area was a wooden roller coaster called Raptor Racers. During the ride, guests would encounter a group of raptors and be chased by them into a dark ride portion that would have involved some sort of track movement or vibration to simulate the danger. When pulling back into the station, special UV lighting would reveal raptor claw marks and damage to the coaster trains. Finally, there were also plans for a hypercoaster called the Amber Mine Coaster, which would have reached over 200 feet tall and would presumably travel around some amber mines. These plans were actually approved by Universal, but were inevitably cancelled. It's safe to assume this was due to the tourism decline around this time. During the planning stages of Men in Black Alien Attack, the entrance for the attraction had an alternative design, which was planned to be a replica of the Orlando International Airport. Guests would enter the terminal-like building and be guided onto people movers to transport them to the underground Men in Black training facility. This idea was eventually scrapped, with executives concerned that the airport was not associated with the movie, and instead wanted at least one recognizable item or artifact from the Men in Black movie. Eventually, it was decided to go for a retro-futuristic design, with the film's flying saucer-shaped towers, and elements of the New York State Pavilion from the 1964 World's Fair, Dodger Stadium, and the St. Louis Arch. On October 28, 2015, 2 guests were arrested and charged with battery after attacking scare actors during the Halloween Horror Nights event. 2 scare actors reportedly quit after the attacks. In the original concepts for the Toon Lagoon area of Islands of Adventure, there were plans for a dinner show themed to Popeye. The show would have featured sailors performing. This attraction was planned to compete with another dinner show attraction in the Orlando area, but the plans were eventually shelved. As part of their marketing campaign for Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit, Universal created a character who was supposedly a famous rock star in Eastern Europe. His name was Sid Vinyl, and he had his very own Facebook and Twitter accounts created to promote the ride. There were also various videos uploaded to the Sid Vinyl YouTube channel, including Sid taking part in brainstorming sessions with a rollercoaster engineer, Sid being interviewed, and even clips of Sid's concerts, which were very low quality and pixelated clips that could have been from any concert. On the channel, there is also Sid Vinyl's one-hit wonder single, Love Musk.
And you know, there's a line in that song that will inspire. It's called, the line goes, if smelling you's a crime, I'd be arrested all the time.
Wow.
And that happened to me once, actually.
There was even a petition to get the song added to the roller coaster's song list. But sadly, the petition only has 87 supporters to this day. After Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit opened, Sid vanished, with only his social media accounts remaining, with his last tweet being asking people to sign the aforementioned petition. I can't help but wonder, if more people had signed the petition, then maybe the story would have ended differently.
To my fans, peace out. We'll be in touch, okay? Cheers.
On October 1st, 2016, a man and a 14-year-old girl suffered minor injuries when an e-cigarette exploded on the Hogwarts Express. A group of young men from the Orlando area were riding on the train, and one of them had an e-cigarette or vape pen in his pocket that malfunctioned. It apparently blew up and caused a small explosion that left both the man and the girl with burns. Police described it as a freak accident. In 2016, a video of a Universal employee dressed in a Squidward costume hitting the dab went viral online. The video was originally uploaded to Vine by Dion Dunk on January 26 and quickly gained views with over 22 million loops on Vine alone. Apparently, the Universal Studios employee was fired following this for breaking character while in costume. But the iconic dab is still a meme, and there's even been official merch made from it. In the original concept for Dudley Do-Right's Ripsaw Falls, the finale of the ride was planned to feature Snidely Whiplash lowering a blade to the boats and splitting them in half. The two separate logs would go down the final drop separately. The split logs would unload at different stations and then reattach before loading more passengers. This concept actually made it far into development, which is why there are two separate tracks down the final drop and two unloading docks. It's unknown as to why this concept was scrapped, but it was likely due to budget constraints or logistical issues. On top of the airport concept for the facade of Men in Black Alien Attack, there was also the idea of using a Tropicana orange juice factory tour as the entrance for the attraction. This was because, of course, the association with oranges of Florida, but also because Tropicana is a Seagram's brand, who were also shareholders in the park at the time, so it would have been some great advertisement for the brand. During the planning stages for Islands of Adventure or Cartoon World, one of the proposed attractions was an interactive dark ride themed to Casper the Friendly Ghost. Riders would sit on beds and could choose their own ride path by controlling a candelabra at the foot of the bed. This attraction was allegedly going to be themed to the 1995 Casper film, produced by Steven Spielberg. When Universal Studios Florida opened in 1990, it featured Alfred Hitchcock, The Art of Making Movies, which was a part 3D film, part live-action show, commemorating his 43-year-long association with the studios. In 2003, the attraction closed and was replaced by Shrek 4D. Apparently, the attraction was haunted by the ghost of Alfred Hitchcock, according to employees who worked on the attraction. One employee said, "Yes, the place is literally haunted by Alfred. His spirit walks that soundstage, and he is not happy that the ogre replaced his beloved attraction." The weirdest experience I had was one evening we were waving the last group out the door. And as I walked back, the Pinocchio animatronic started rapidly kicking his legs, and then it stopped. The room was deathly silent, and then that. It was very strange. Another employee who worked on the attraction commented, "We have to say hi to Alfred every morning or he gets angry, and stuff will go wrong. In the ride-throughs in the morning, there's quite often a seat in the back row that will go down, and when the show finishes, it will go back." If Hitchcock was angry about Shrek 4D, I can't imagine he'd be happy about the Minion attraction that replaced Shrek. Or who knows, maybe he's a Minions fan. On October 2nd, 2019, the park temporarily shut down Hagrid's Magical Creatures motorbike adventure after a swarm of honeybees surrounded the whole area of the attraction. It reopened later that evening. Around the release of Ice Age 4 in 2012, Universal began to explore the possibility of retheming Kid Zone to an Ice Age themed area. The main attraction of the area would have been an indoor boat ride, which would be set inside a massive glacier, and would have taken riders through cavernous scenes filled with a mix of animatronic characters and projected media. Outside, a massive Iceberg pirate ship from the fourth film would be seen between the ride's entrance and exit. There would have also been an acorn bullwhip style ride, and a play area. There were two concepts for the play areas. One was a sloth village inspired by Peach's play area from Ice Age 3, featuring vine swings, slides, and soft play areas. The other concept was a jungle-themed play area, with a T-Rex slide, rope bridges, and a zip line. Woody Woodpecker's Nuthouse Coaster would have also been rethemed to suit the Ice Age theme. Again, there were two concepts for the theming of the coaster. One was an icy setting featuring Manny, Ellie, and Peaches. And the other theme was a lush tropical theme featuring a giant carnivorous flower and animatronics of Sid and Diego trying to escape its clutches. Ultimately, these plans were scrapped, but it's unclear why. It's probably a good thing that they didn't go ahead with the plans since Disney now owns the rights to Ice Age and all. In 2002, Halloween Horror Nights was moved to Islands of Adventure and was given the name Islands of Fear. While this allowed new opportunities for scare attractions, there was also a very big problem, which was of course Seuss Landing. Dr. Seuss's widow, Audrey Giesel, forbid Universal from turning her husband's family-friendly world into a world of fear. If Universal ignored her and did anything frightening with the area, Audrey threatened that she'd end the partnership with Dr. Seuss. She said that Universal was not allowed to put anything remotely scary in the Seuss Landing area of the park for Halloween Horror Nights. So in 2002, when Cindy was originally planned to be the icon, Universal decided to have a scare zone titled Grinch Night, inspired by the 1977 television special Halloween is Grinch Night. The story is that the Who's were scared of the Grinch and stayed in their homes, making the town look abandoned. Nothing scary would be placed in the scare zone, just fog and weird music. Due to the linear nature of Islands of Adventure, this was designed to be the sixth and final scare zone guests would enter. After Cindy was scrapped as the icon, the scare zone would be renamed to Booville. The scare zone would still have the same story. Booville would return the following year in 2003, mostly unchanged. This was the only scare zone in the event's history with no scare actors. Instead, there was areas filled with fog, and guests could see the silhouettes of Whoville characters through the windows, which honestly sounds rather terrifying in itself. With Universal's soon to open Islands of Adventure, they had planned to open a new attraction in Universal Studios Florida in 2000, to draw in guests to balance out the crowds visiting the new park. Originally, the plot of land where Men in Black Alien Attack was located was planned to become the site of the Jurassic Park ride, but this idea was scrapped when it was decided to give Jurassic Park its own themed land. Universal would later explore the idea of building an indoor roller coaster themed to the 1995 movie Apollo 13. The facade and queue were set to be inspired by the Kennedy Space Center's vehicle assembly building. Guests would ride around the moon in lunar lander-style capsules. Unfortunately, due to time constraints, the plans were put to one side, as they were deemed too ambitious. But they didn't give up on this idea and explored building an outdoor version of the roller coaster, which could have been achieved quicker. However, these plans were ultimately shelved. In August 2002, a woman was selected from the audience to participate in the horror makeup show. After being scared by Eddie, the animatronic werewolf, during the finale, she fell off the stage and landed on the steps, breaking her leg. She was rushed to the hospital and released shortly afterwards. Since the incident, the audience volunteer has been asked to return to their seat before the jump scare happens. As well as the famous haunting of Shrek 4D by Alfred Hitchcock, there have been various other reported paranormal encounters at the resort. Of course, as with any paranormal stories, please take these with a grain of salt, since I haven't really been able to find any evidence, just the stories. Firstly, at Soundstage 22 in 2016, during the Halloween Horror Nights event, the venue hosted a haunted house based on the Exorcist movie. Staff working on this house reported flickering lights which apparently weren't supposed to flicker, strange noises, and some even reported strange things happening to them each night after working on the house. There is also a ghost story about the former Confrontation attraction, where apparently a workman died during the construction, whose ghost haunted the attraction. Team members reported seeing an extra passenger on the ride's trams when they were empty, which then mysteriously disappeared. The attraction that replaced Confrontation, The Revenge of the Mummy, is also said to be haunted. During the construction of the ride, an electrical fire was mysteriously ignited, delaying its opening. Some have speculated that this is related to the ghost. Staff working at the ride between its opening in 2004 and 2006 claim to have seen the ghost riding in their vehicles near the ride's unload station and in various locations of the queue. Guests have also reported hearing strange noises at the Universal Endless Summer Resort, which may be ghosts from the former Wet n Wild water park. Although this may be down to the thin walls between rooms. Of course, these are just stories, but nonetheless I find them very interesting. If you have experienced any unusual happenings at the resort, I'd love to hear about them in the comments. So that was the Universal Orlando Resort Iceberg. I had a lot of fun making and researching for this video, but I'm by no means a Universal expert. In fact, I've only been once when I was very young, but I credit it as the place that actually began my love of theme parks. Shout out to Dueling Dragons. I'm sure that there's a lot I missed out on this video. Namely, I didn't talk so much about Halloween Horror Nights, but that's because I know there's so much lore, and I could honestly make an entire iceberg dedicated to that. So if you'd like to see that, let me know in the comments. And if there's any other icebergs you'd like to see from me, let me know as well. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you all for your support. I recently reached 1,000 subscribers, which is insane, so thank you for subscribing and watching my silly little videos. It means a lot. Anyway, that's all from me for now, so thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one.